More than 19 million adults in the United States struggle with some form of anxiety disorder. It's the nation's most common mental health problem. We're now joined by Dr. Georg Eifert, a psychology professor at Chapman University and author of numerous books, including his most recent, the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Anxiety. Welcome, Georg.
Thank you for inviting me, Larry.
Thanks so much. This is a big topic because it's so common and so prevalent these days. Is most anxiety part situational, or is it some other metabolic problem going on?
No, most anxiety problems really are situational, and there's not even a lot of genetic influence involved. There is some genetic influence, but really most people just acquire these problems over the course of their lifetime, sometimes even when they're very young, and then it doesn't go away. Anxiety is one of the things that actually, if you don't do anything about it, it usually doesn't go away on its own.
And this is it often, I often hear anxiety, depressive disorders. Is depression a big part of it, or no? Is it?
Yeah, in fact, about 50% of people who have an anxiety disorder are also depressed. But the thing is that most people start out with the anxiety disorder, not with the depression. And they develop depression over time because of what they allow anxiety to do with their life. Because what happens is they spend so much time managing and struggling with their anxiety, and they're doing less. They're not going out. Sometimes they don't even go to work, and they do a lot of things. They no longer do a lot of things that they used to do and that gave them pleasure and that were meaningful to them. And then over time they do get depressed, and it's not an abnormal thing to get depressed over that. Yeah. It's actually quite understandable.
Because you lose control of your life in a sense, because you're not enjoying your life like you used to. And,
yes.
And so you don't really treat the depression, you treat the anxiety, yes. And that takes care of the depression, I imagine.
That's correct, yes.
Now, when do you know that you should seek some kind of, when is, we're all anxious.
Yes.
Just coming here today, you become anxious, but when is anxiety a problem for you?
Well, most people think that anxiety becomes a problem when they have just a lot of anxiety. But that's actually not the case. There are people out there who do have a lot of anxiety and who do not have an anxiety disorder. If you want to know whether or not you have a problem, you just really basically have to look at your life and ask yourself, is anxiety holding me back from what I want to do? Is it interfering with my life? Don't look at the intensity. I'm very anxious right now. In fact, I was very anxious before I came here. Almost like a panic attack. But that doesn't mean I have panic disorder. If I didn't come to this show because I say, oh well, I have too much anxiety and I don't want to have it, and therefore I will not go to the show, well, then I'm on the way to developing a disorder. It's when you allow anxiety to interfere with your life and what is important to you, then it becomes a disorder.
So you're controlling the anxiety in a sense, it's not controlling you. You're living your life, you feel it like we all do, but...
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, you used a very important word. I'm actually not controlling my anxiety, because that is the pitfall. So many people look for treatments that are aimed at controlling, managing, reducing, preferably even eliminating anxiety. And the bad news is that doesn't work. It really doesn't work very well. And the good news is you don't have to get rid of all your anxiety. You don't even have to get rid of it, the most panicky part of it. You can take your anxiety along and do what matters to you with your anxiety. That may mean, yes, sometimes you have to take it along for the ride, as we say. But if you do that, over time you will actually see that your anxiety changes too. But the most important thing is to give up controlling your anxiety and struggling with it.
Oh, I see. So you're actually kind of letting go in a way. And I think that's probably part of your, I think you go into that in your book.
Yes.
The book is, I understand, is very well written and very helped a lot of people, and it's a self-help book, is that right?
Yes, it is a self-help book, and that's the good news, that people really can do something about it themselves. You don't have to rely on medication, unfortunately a lot of people do, and the fact is, and the studies show that medication only goes so far, and often when you stop taking the medication, your anxiety is back to where it was. But you used a very crucial word just now. You said the answer or something, the solution is to let go, and that's really true. And you know, I brought this this rope along, and that's really, it's like a tug of war. And people find themselves in a tug of war with their anxiety. Anxiety is pulling them, and then they try to pull back, and somehow they try to win it, and you know, and well, eliminate it and win this war. And so it goes on and on. But when you ask people, have you ever won this war? They will tell you, no, no. I've tried so many things and everything, nothing. And the answer is not to win this tug of war because it's unwinnable. The answer is letting go, dropping the rope. And what we really show people in the book is how to drop the rope, how to end the tug of war with your anxiety so that you can live the life that you want to live.
So somebody feels they're stressed out and they're not overly consumed with this anxiety. They can buy your book and they can go through, it's a self-help book,
yes.
Right? So they can find their way through this.
Yes.
What are there's the 3 core steps. What is that about?
Yeah, well, the first step is really understanding that all these solutions that people have tried before to get rid of their anxiety, that they really haven't worked and that they may never work. And the good news is they need not work. They can do something different. They can actually start letting go of the rope, getting out of this struggle, out of this fight. And then the second step is to learn the skill about how to do this. How do I actually do this? How can I not let anxiety rule my life? And one thing that you can learn to do is to become more mindful of your experience. Because ultimately, what is anxiety? Anxiety are a lot of physical sensations that can be very, very aversive, you know, very difficult. A lot of negative thoughts, panicky thoughts, we sometimes call catastrophizing thoughts, worries, excessive worries. And now you have all these things. Now what can you do with them? Well, you can learn to look at them, you know, like from an observer perspective. And that's really what mindfulness is. Not run away from them, not try to get rid of them, not try to change them. Just look at them and recognize them for what they are. Thoughts, physical sensations, things that your mind throws at you, but that you don't need necessarily to listen to, and you certainly don't need to do what your mind seemed to be telling you, which is to run away, get out of the situation, or don't go there because it's too dangerous. Your mind is telling you all these things, and what we sometimes say to people, your mind is not always your best friend.
I see. So you're saying you don't have to get away from these, but you can deal with them differently. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes, you can really respond to them differently, and that's what you can control. You know, it would be so great if we had a switch, you know, somewhere or some kind of smart technique by which we can actually turn off the panic button.
Great.
And the thing is, no, nobody has invented that. And I hope the viewers will understand and recognize that people who promise them too much. It is a normal thing to have. Now, but what we can do is to recognize the anxiety for what it is and start to relate to it in a different way, not do what it says, not respond to it by running away from it, but just observe it, just have it. Which you have it anyway.
Okay. I see you have some
of
these tools here to help us.
In some ways, yeah. And in fact, I can show you what we do with this. And you know, in some ways, many people treat anxiety like this Chinese finger trap.
It's not to the end of my career.
Yeah, you go in like this, okay, and then obviously your mind is telling you, well, if you got in here by pushing in, well, you've got to pull out. If you want to get out. But do you notice what happens when you pull?
Trapped, yeah.
Yeah, you get trapped. And that's exactly what happens in people's lives. This is their life situation. They try to run away from the anxiety. They try to control it. They try to get rid of it. And as they do, their life gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and they're stuck.
That's a great example.
And so what do? You do the thing that is kind of counterintuitive. Well,
Boom.
you have to push in again, you
That's
know.
a great example.
And
That's
then you see, you may not get out right away, but you have some wiggle room. You know, you have some more space, and that's exactly what happens with your life.
That's a great example. Well, we're almost out of time. I guess the final message here would be about anxiety. What would you say?
Stop trying to control it, to manage it, to eliminate it. Don't run away from it. Learn to be with it. Learn the skills to be with it, and focus on what you can change, what you do with your hands and feet, and what you want your life to stand for.
That's great. I'm sure this book is going to come in very handy in these economic times, the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Anxiety. Thank you,
Yes.
Georg, for coming.
It's my pleasure.